Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, living beneficiaries, to the show for living beneficiaries, the House of Hidalgo show on the Estate Radio Network. Prepare for the most educational 60 minutes on all of radio with your host, Rick Hidalgo. The House of Hidalgo show can be followed on Twitter or Facebook by searching House of Hidalgo. Find the show on the web at www.therockofsalem.org. Sign up for the newsletter, and while you're there, take the 5-question survey to let us know what you think. The Estate Radio Network is part of the Blog Talk Radio family of networks and can be found at www.blogtalkradio.com/South Dakota DP. Join the show now by chat or call 619-639-4605. Don't forget to dial 1 to get in the queue. Here's your host, Rick Hidalgo! Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rick Hidalgo, the host of the House of Hidalgo show on the Estate Radio Network. I would like to remind you, first of all, to go and participate in our chat. The chat session is underway at www.blogtalkradio.com/South Dakota DP. And if you will go to and click on today's show, you'll go to the live page and go down to the bottom of the page and you'll see the chat. Definitely, I'd like to welcome you to participate in that and ask your questions if you need to. If you have any questions, otherwise, you could call in at 619-639-4605. 619-639-4605. With all that aside, I'm by myself today, but I do have some audios I'd like to play here along the way. Today we're talking education. We're talking about what I entitled The Conspiracy of the Common Core Curriculum. Of course, I entitled it that way on purpose, Common Core Conspiracy, because it's yet another layer of tyranny that's been placed on our school system, our, as a good friend of mine calls it, the public fooling system. It's not that I'm opposed to the teachers, because I don't really think the teachers have a clue of what's going on. It's presented to them in such a clear and precise fashion that they actually think that it's education, but clearly it's not. I wanted to go and rediscover it a little bit here today. I want to go back into the history, and I want to start looking at what true education is and what education has been through the years. First of all, we go back and we just use America as a model. Obviously, America doesn't have the longest history in the world, as most of Americans came over from Europe. However, there were people, of course, here, indigenous people that lived here on this continent far before we arrived here, and those people self-educated in a much different way. They had a more earth-based education system where their experience is what they educated literally by living life. It's sort of a matriarchal type of society where the man and the woman works together to teach their child everything they should know. It's by all accounts, it's what the biblical model really is. And me being someone with a biblical kind of worldview, I like to say that that's the ultimate model, is a mom and a dad passing down what they know to their children. It really had little to do with book knowledge. Obviously, there wasn't that many books, if any, over here. That could be shared and consumed. Well, then, of course, as we became sold on this piece of land over here, and we began to occupy it, we started to slowly bring in influences from Europe, different kinds of book learning, different kinds of teaching of law and structure and order that wasn't really natural order. It was more of a kind of a human man-made order that was placed on top of natural order. It's kind of like the difference between a Gregorian calendar and a Roman calendar, where one was based on natural patterns and one was based on a different pattern. I'm not a real professional in those particular areas, but I know enough to say that when you play against nature, a lot of times you get burned. And I think that our society is definitely prone to get burned because we play with things. I just had a conversation with a good friend, David Frank, and David Frank has some great updates to bring to us here pretty soon. I'll go ahead and release one of them real quick here, that he's got the City Council of South Bend working with him to bring about some great changes, and he'll go into that next time that I have him on this show. But David and I were talking a little bit, and we kind of was kicking it around a little bit, and David, he's the kind of guy that he's a no crap kind of guy, and I just lost my train of thought. I'm not sure where I was going with that, but let me get back on track here. What we really want to talk about is the differences in true education that comes from a mother and father and actual experiential knowledge and that kind of thing versus this curriculum-based. We go to school and we learn kind of the 3 R's, and anymore it's way more than 3 R's. There's a lot more to it than that. We fill in all kinds of stuff that's just not even really needed. But all that stuff aside, we can see very clearly that our education system has slowly gotten away from us. I'm going to play a little audio clip here, and you can find this audio clip on YouTube. They got some cool little animation that goes along with it. Of course, you'll not be able to see the animation, but this clip is called "The Dumbing Down of America," and it's not based on the Charlotte Iserby book that all of us are so oriented with in the Patriot community, but it is a very good little MP3. So I encourage you to listen to this very closely and catch the little nuances of it.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Maya. She was a bright, energetic young lady. Everybody thought Maya would do great things one day. Today was a special day. It was the first day of school, and Maya was looking forward to all the new things she would learn this year. But this year was not going to be exactly what Maya expected. Something was different this year. Something in school was not quite right. Maya was still learning how to read and write, and even though her homework was full of spelling mistakes, her teacher gave her a gold star. The teacher did not ask Maya to correct her spelling. Maya's mother asked the teacher why her daughter got a gold star. The teacher said that marking the spelling wrong would hurt the child's self-esteem. In the modern way of schooling, there was no right and no wrong. They now have a new way of spelling called invented spelling. She explained that the kids could spell words any way they liked. It's all correct because it's all creative. In some of the more advanced classes, they even use this method of no wrong or right in math. This way, 2 plus 2 could equal 5, and no one's feelings would be hurt. Even though this seemed odd to Maya's mother, she didn't question the teacher. After all, the teacher is the professional, and surely she knows what she's doing. By the second month in school, Maya came home looking very down. She no longer was as happy as she used to be. Her mom didn't know that Maya was learning a subject called death education. All that talk about death gave Maya nightmares and made her nervous all the time. When her mom found out about death ed, it confused her. She didn't understand why young children were being taught about death. But she didn't say anything because, after all, the teacher was the professional, and surely she knows what she is doing. On the 6th week of school, Maya's mom found a test in Maya's backpack. The test was marked, "Not to be taken home." Her mom looked over the test and found questions about her personal thoughts. Do you sometimes get nervous talking in front of class? Do you ever get depressed? Do you feel like your parents are abusing you? Upon further research, Maya's mom found out that this was a psychological test given to the students without the parents' consent. The kids were offered pizza or movie tickets if they filled out all the answers. Investigating further, she found out that if the child was evaluated as high risk for depression, she would be sent to the school counselor, who would then tell the parents that the child needed medication. She also found out that most of the kids taking the test had mental problems and that they would all be asked to see the psychologist. Maya's mother was alarmed, but she let Maya see the counselor. She was worried about her little girl and felt she might need help. And after all, the counselor is a professional, and if he says Maya needs medicine, he must know what he's doing. The psychologist recommended Maya be put on a drug that would cure the chemical imbalance in her brain. The fact that she was never tested for such an imbalance didn't occur to her mom. The doctor was a professional. So each day before school, Maya would line up with all the other kids who also needed medication. A day after she started taking her meds, Maya was having more nightmares and weird thoughts. She didn't look right to her mother. So they went back to the doctor, who put Maya on a different drug. Even though she went along with all this, Maya's mom was confused. How could her daughter be getting high grades but not know how to read or write or do math? And why was her little girl, who was so happy and energetic, now so quiet and sleepy all the time? The teacher was pleased. Maya no longer spoke out in class and seemed to be more focused on her work. And now, a little history. In 1879, Wilhelm Wundt, the father of psychology, decided that man had no soul. Man was just a stimulus response animal with no self-determinism. He needed to be trained like any other animal. Supply the correct stimulus, you get the correct response, just like rats or dogs. In the early 1900s, Teachers College taught teachers the new science of psychology. These new methods of teaching would devalue academics and concentrate on behavioral techniques to mold children's values. Schools would be turned into mini psych clinics. The Rockefeller Foundation backed Teachers College and new educators like Edward Lee Thorndike, James Earl Russell, and John Dewey, who were disciples of Wundt. Together they rewrote textbooks and curriculum for the new American education system. This system got away from learning to sound out words using a method called phonics. It was old and too difficult, they said. They now use a new method called look-see, or whole word. All you had to do was recognize words by the way they looked, instead of learning to sound them out. And even though reading levels took a nosedive, they continued to push these new methods. They hired professional educators that believed history and geography were unnecessary burdens on young minds. Children should concentrate more on how they feel about history rather than memorizing unnecessary facts. And most importantly, the teachers and counselors should be the ones to teach moral values to the children, not the children's own parents. Parents were not professionals. 1965. Passage of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. The number of educational psychologists in schools rise from 455 in 1969 to 16,146 in 1992. Probably just coincidentally, the number of child murderers and suicides skyrocketed as well. Certain members of the government were overjoyed with this new form of education, controlling the behavior of people, keeping them dumb. They could pass any laws they wanted and no one would even know. Now the program was complete. Dumb them down, fill them with drugs, then indoctrinate them with facts they no longer had the power to refute. While the mental health experts were taking control of the kids away from their parents, the kids' bodies were also being poisoned, making education even harder. Fluoride, found in drinking water and hundreds of products, is actually a highly toxic industrial waste product. Fluoride is the main ingredient in sarin nerve gas used by the Nazis in World War II to make their victims docile and sterile. It's also the key dumbing down ingredient of Prozac. Here are some of the cumulative effects of fluoride. Worried about the flu? Do you know what's in the vaccine? Fact. More people die from the vaccine than die from the flu. Fact. Vaccinations have been associated with many neurological disorders. Babies are given a cocktail of vaccines before their little body's immune systems can handle it. Genetically modified foods are linked to toxic and allergic reactions, sick, sterile, and dead livestock, and damage to virtually every organ studied in lab animals. They are banned by food manufacturers in Europe and elsewhere. Yet GMOs are present in the vast majority of processed foods in the U.S. One night after Maya finished her homework, she and her mother were watching the TV together when they saw a news report come on about another mass murder at a high school. The reporter said the boy had stopped taking his meds and that his psychiatrist said that's why he killed all those people. Here's what the reporter didn't say. Side effects of the new mind-altering drugs can cause suicide and violence. All the recent school shooters were treated with these drugs. They were all troubled boys, but none of them were murderers until after they were medicated. It was raining the day they buried Maya. Nobody could understand why a 9-year-old would want to hang herself. Things like this never happened before. It was all very confusing. The school psychologist said, if only we could have gotten to her sooner.
Sad, sad, sad story. But typical of what we find in the world that we live in today. And I wanted to bring up a few really important points here. First of all, I'm not a professional, okay? I would never claim to be a professional. But what I am is a parent. I'm a parent professional, okay? I'm not a teacher professional. I don't have a license. I don't carry any credentials. I did have a short stint as a private school principal. And I did work at another private school as a teacher. But I'm not credentialed. Never have been. Not a day in my life have I spent being educated, or as I call it, brainwashed on how to teach a child. And another point I'd like to point out is, they mention in there how the psychological aspect of it comes in back in 1879, I believe it was, where all the psychological aspect of education started to come in, and they began to research it, and they started designing psychological studies. These psychological studies were based on how to train a person to get the right answer out of them every time. We began to see man as animals. This goes to something that Adam Adask talked about. Mr. Adask was on my program several weeks ago. He discovered that there was statutory codes written in the federal and state constitutions, or not constitutions, in statutes that actually defined food and drug equipment and paraphernalia as it actually in the definition actually mentioned man or other animals. So yeah, there is a presumption out there in statutory law that we are just another animal. And, you know, we see that. We see that made very clear. This is why we can scream as loud as we want to our so-called representatives, and they don't listen. They send us back a form letter that had nothing to do with the question that we asked them. I know this for a fact because I used to correspond with those people, and it was very rare that I got an actual question answered. I'd also like to point out that I have a son. I have 6 children. I should put it this way, to be honest with you. I take care of 6 children that are God's, because that's really the bottom line, and I think that's the way we're going to have to start approaching this thing is because they're playing semantics with our words. Parent/guardian in their contract law means something completely different than what we think it means. But anyway, that's another subject. I have 6 children, and child number 1, he's 17 years old, and he went through a lot of issues. And most of them were self-inflicted issues. But, you know, there was a time where we were kind of weak, and they suggested that we put our child on a Ritalin type of drug. And we started to see some suicidal tendencies for a while. We decided to take him off against the doctor and against the school's better judgment. And we saw drastic improvements within weeks. You know, is he perfect? No, he's not perfect. He's never been perfect. I don't know a perfect person. I've never met one. You know, outside of my faith, I don't know perfection. But I can tell you from experience that yeah, there's validity to these drugs. These drugs are terrible. Also, I'd like to point out, you know, they made mention to the Rockefeller Foundation and some different foundations that are funding these education initiatives, and this is the way that they compel legislation. You know, they compel performance by these so-called representatives. And I say so-called because wait till you hear David Frank. You know, I agree with him. He says, you know, 535 people cannot represent, you know, 300 million or whatever it is people. There's just no way. And, you know, I'm starting to more and more agree with him. I used to have a little bit of trouble with this whole idea, but, you know, it's going to have to happen from a local level. We're going to have to start at a local level and just start changing things right where we're at. We're going to talk a little bit later in this program about some of the things that I'm trying to do here at a local level. I'm communicating with my superintendent about some things, and we're going to get into that live on this broadcast. I might be testing the waters by doing it, but guess what? That's who I am. I'm going to test the waters. But I want to talk a little bit about IEP. You know, my second child, who's 15 years old, he had one of those individual, what do they call them? Educational plans, IEP. And let's face it. What really happens when they put your kid on an IEP is that the school gets higher funding. So it's a benefit to the school to have as many kids on IEPs as possible. I'm not crying conspiracy on that when it comes to the local school, because I think a lot of local schools are doing all that they can, and they're faced with these regulations that are bogus, and I'm trying my best to live as a free man at the same time, and it's a conflicting interest, trust me. But let's talk about this IEP for a second. My child, my 15-year-old now, used to be on an IEP. And we actually brought him home and homeschooled him for a year and sent him back, and he tested out of it. Now, examine that for a second here. Had he not come out and had we not worked with him 100% one-on-one to get him up to par, imagine where he could be today. Because, they're not compelled to take kids out of an IEP. Okay? They want to leave them there because they get more funding. So, part of that is kind of conspiratorial. Because once they get in there, it's a black hole. It's hard to get them out. And, that's kind of what I wanted to mention concerning the IEP. So, in a minute here, after a short break, about a 2.5-minute break, I'm going to play another video or another audio. It's Ben Swan audio. And Ben Swan's a private investigator. He's an investigative journalist, I should say, in, I believe, the Cincinnati area of Ohio. Very credentialed. And I like him a lot. He really digs into things and finds out the meat. So we're going to play a little Ben Swan clip. That one's only about a 3-minute clip, and then we're going to go from there. So the next 2.5 minutes, we're going to take a quick break. Go get yourself a glass of water, and I'll be right back. Do you need an experienced editor to look over your short story, script, or novel? Do you need help building a platform or self-publishing your book? Are you on the cusp of realizing your dream, but you need someone to help you with those few extra steps? Are you a business in need of an established copy editor or copywriter? Dan O'Brien has more than a decade of experience in writing and publishing, and his rates are flexible. All that matters to Dan is the integrity of your artistic vision, and Dan can help you create the highest quality work possible. Please email Dan today at amalgamconsulting@gmail.com or visit his website, www.amalgamconsulting.com. That's AMALGAM consulting.com. Write Dan today. Start your dreams tomorrow. Do you have hopes, dreams, and goals, but don't know how to reach them? Do you wonder how you could do differently to achieve greater success at home or at work? Do you feel like something is holding you back from enjoying your life to the fullest? Are you fed up with status quo and ready for real and lasting life change? Are you wanting to start a business or expand an existing one? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, then you are ready for life coaching with Mr. Attitude. Mr. Attitude will stretch and grow you and take your life to a whole new level of success by equipping you with the tools to help you to accomplish more in less time, get and keep your priorities in line, gain greater happiness and joy, face your fears, plan for success, be more assertive and confident, overcome negative stress, deal with negative thinking, set goals you will achieve, and more. Mr. Attitude specializes in results producing. Life strategy coaching for the personal side of your life. Small business coaching for those who want to start a small business or build a stronger small business. Train the trainer coaching for those who aspire to become a motivational professional speaker. Call today and reserve your appointment with greater success. 605-450-1955. That's 605-450-1955. Or email Bob at MrAttitudespeaks.com. That's MrAttitudespeaks.com. Mr. Attitude is committed to your success. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back on the House of Hidalgo show on the Estate Radio Network, which is found at theestateradionetwork.com. And I want to thank you guys for coming on today. This has been a fantastic conversation already. Even though I'm kind of monologuing my way through this, I realize more and more how much experience that we really do have as parents, and how much we should really consider ourselves more professionals than we are. And I think that should be said for all of us who are parents. We need to stand up and shout from the highest rooftops what it is that we demand for our children. And speaking of demanding for our children, I'm going to get into that in just a little bit after we get this clip from Ben Swan.
It is called Common Core, and the idea behind it is reasonable. States working together to create national standards for education, standards that are designed to be robust and relevant in the real world. Well, it sounds good. So why is there growing opposition in Ohio and around the country to Common Core? Ben has the reality check you won't see anywhere else.
Well, chances are you may not have heard of Common Core before, and yet Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana have all adopted the Common Core state standards. Go to the website, and here's what you'll find. Common Core is focused on two things: mathematics standards and English language arts standards. It was created by the National Governors Association Center for Best Practices and the Council of Chief State School Officers. So this isn't some federal unfunded mandate, and all of it sounds good, right? So why is there growing opposition in Ohio and across the nation to Common Core? The group Ohioans Against Common Core say that what the public has been told about this initiative so far is not the truth. For instance, even though the National Governors Association is behind the initiative, it's not actually state-led. The Common Core standards were initiated by private interests in Washington, D.C., not from state lawmakers. The National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers are both D.C.-based trade associations. In fact, the majority of the creative work was done by a group called Achieve Incorporated. It's a progressive nonprofit group based out of D.C. and received a lot of funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Okay, so Common Core wasn't created by the states, but 45 states in the country have adopted it, so it has to be a good thing, right? Well, even though the National Governors Association is cited as the author of Common Core, the feds have had a big hand in it. The Department of Education helped to create Common Core, poured hundreds of millions of dollars into two consortia that are creating national tests aligned with Common Core. And the states that adopted it, well, they did so to remain eligible for Race to the Top federal funding. So with the feds involved, what does Common Core actually mean for states? Well, for starters, Common Core establishment no longer claims that the standards are internationally benchmarked. Their website now states they're informed by the standards of other countries, though there's no definition of informed by. It means streamlined curriculum created not by the states, but by private associations and nonprofits in Washington, D.C. The Fordham Institute, a proponent of Common Core, admits that several states had standards that were superior to CC, and that many states had standards at least as good. Common Core has been described by many as a, quote, race to the middle. Well, what this means for you is that ultimately Common Core means that states will, over time, give up control over curriculum in their schools. States are not allowed to change any of the Common Core standards. Common Core says, well, look, they're not about curriculum, they're only about those standards. And yet, those two testing consortia being funded by the U.S. Department of Education have admitted in their grant applications that, yeah, in fact, they would use the money to develop curriculum models for the nation. And that is Reality Check.
All right. That was Reality Check by Ben Swan. kind of interesting, kind of really interesting. And I want to remind everybody that there are only three entities in the world that are sovereign states. Okay? And by sovereign states, I'm talking about the top layer of power in the world. We're talking the City of London, we're talking the Vatican, and we're talking Washington, D.C. They have nobody telling them what to do. Okay? Sure, they have a bunch of people, supposedly we the people, throwing opinions at them, right? I mean, that's what these polls are, right? They're opinions. So we're throwing our opinions at them all the time. We're emailing them, we're calling them. We're throwing our opinions at them, and guess what? At the end of the day, as long as they're inhabiting that piece of land that does not belong to the United States of America, it is its own city-state, and it is its own power structure. And there's a lot to be said for that. Now, I'd like to correct Mr. Swan in one particular area. He mentions that Washington, D.C., he mentioned Washington, D.C. about 13 times, I think. When it came to these groups and where the Common Core standards actually originated. And I don't think that that's necessarily the truth, because if you go to the UN, which is UN.org, and you do a search for their education profile, you'll learn very quickly that there's an international education alliance, okay, that's literally putting together these plans. This is not an American school system, not even close. Go look at it for yourself. Don't believe me. Go to UN.org and search Education Initiative. I think that's what it's, something like that. And look at it for yourself. Compare it to the Common Core standards, which you can find online as well. Go to just Google Common Core standards, and you'll see all the different standards. Now, putting that aside, and quickly mentioning that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is no more than the new Rockefeller Foundation. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is also putting together little hybrid mosquitoes to go inoculate people with vaccines. I mean, they got all kinds of weird scientific sci-fi type of programs going on at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They just this is the new Rothschild society. Conspiracy theorists are going to go crazy with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You go there and it's a beautiful little page, and it's all flowery and beautiful. But you start to get into their projects, and boy, it's not so flowery and beautiful. But let's put that aside. I want to get to the crux of the issue here. The Common Core standard is just another attempt to rob or circumvent the authority of the parent. That's all it is. It's just plain and simple. Go and read their standards. Okay? I have a copy of it right here that we were so-called required to sign. And I'll tell you what I did. Kind of funny, actually. But here's what the parent responsibilities. Number one, monitor my child academically, socially, and behaviorally on a daily basis, and contact the teacher immediately if I notice any concerns in these areas. Now, does anybody else think that there's something wrong with that picture? Okay, they're asking me, now understand, this is a compact that I'm putting together that they're asking me to sign. It's a student, parent, teacher compact. It is a legal contract, and it's even a de jure contract because it's got three parties, and according to ecclesiastical law, two or three witnesses is a good contract. So here we go. We've got three witnesses right here. It's got all the consideration of a contract. But does anybody else think it's weird that they're asking me? And by the way, it doesn't say in the school environment, it doesn't say at home. It leaves it wide open. It says, monitor my child academically, socially, and behaviorally on a daily basis, and contact the teacher immediately if I notice any concerns in these areas. Should it not be the other way around? I mean, really? This one just blows my mind. You know, and then they throw the second one here, which sounds great initially. Limit my child's use of computers and televisions each day. Discuss the sites and programs they are viewing on the computer and television. This also pertains to technology devices such as Xbox and Wii. Okay, let me ask you a question. Why do you have to throw this also pertains to technology devices such as Xbox and Wii? Because what you're really talking about is computers and televisions, right? Okay, so because that's really what you're talking about. Now, so you just throw in this also pertains to. That's just basic common understanding. So let's break that down a little bit. Limit my child's use of computers and televisions each day. First of all, the Common Core Standards issues a computer to every child. Every child. My sixth grader has no math book. Math is totally online. Okay? Now, that's supposed to be a good thing. But as far as I'm concerned, unless you show me the work, you've done no work. That's how I principled back when I was a private school principal. You got to show me the work. And it goes way beyond that. Let's get on to the next one so we don't run out of time, because there's a lot to cover here. Provide a time to discuss the reading and math activities that my child brings home each day and week. Okay, that's cool. But why am I making a pact? Why are you telling me that I have to provide a time to discuss the reading and math activities my child brings home? I mean, do you really have to tell me that? I mean, can we not just presume that I'm a good parent and just, go forward from there? Okay, here's the next thing. Read and listen to my child read 20 minutes a day. Okay. So what happens if I sign this document and we don't get around to that? I don't know, but should I stick around to find out? Volunteer at school or home to view my child's classroom or school. So they want me to volunteer. It says at school or home to help my child's classroom. Okay. Kind of confused about that one. Anyway, contact my child's teacher to learn ways I can help my child. Again, does it at any time specify that what I'm asking for is school related? It says contact my child's teacher to learn ways I can help my child. Words mean something, folks. Words mean something. You don't write a contract like this. This is bogus and is vague, and I would never sign it in a million years. Guide my child in the understanding of how the information that they are learning at school pertains to their daily life. Let's get on to the student responsibilities. And this is every school in the country who's adopted the Common Core Standard. Every parent, student, and teacher have to sign this. Here's a student responsibility. As a student, I will always do my best in my work and behavior and ask my teacher and family if I need help. Work cooperatively with my classmates and respect their differences. Ooh. You got to throw that little respect their differences part in there. because the T word is coming forward now, tolerance. Write down my assignments and make a checklist of homework I need to complete each day. Okay, that's cool, organize, be organized. Work and discuss math and reading skills I have covered in school with my parents. Okay, again, why do you have to make a compact for this? It's not the entire point of parenthood. Anyway, discuss with my parent guardian the television programs, computer sites, and technology devices that I use each day. Okay, again, typical parenting. Then the teacher has got about 3 more points than all of us here. Poor teacher. I wouldn't want to agree to this in a million years. But believe that each student can learn and make sure that each student receives the help they need. Again, sounds great. Build a relationship with the student and their family by continuous communication throughout the school year. Okay? Send home learning materials which the family can do together. Great. I got them all through the summer. It's kind of annoying, actually. Make sure the student understands the assignments. Provide high-quality instruction to assist students in learning the state standards and inform parents on how to access the Common Core standards. Enforce school and classroom rules fairly and consistently. Promote continuous communication with the students and their families. Involve parents and guardians in their child's classroom and other school activities. Display professionalism and a positive attitude. Again, these Common Core standards, as far as the behavioral aspect of it, it doesn't sound terrible. But again, you're putting together a legal contract. You're making parents, students, and teachers sign these things, and it's like step number 1 of conditioning you to the next thing, and then the next thing, then the next thing. What's the next thing going to be that they try to condition us on? Okay, enough of that. I want to talk specifically now about what I'm doing. Okay, here's the remedy. Now, as many of you know, I belong to a group called Divine Province, and Divine Province it operates under original jurisdiction. Original jurisdiction is the jurisdiction that you were born into. Okay, you were born into that jurisdiction because God made you, and you are a creation of God. Now, God did not make corporations, right? This is simple. Simple math, 2 + 2 = 4. God did not make corporations. Who made corporations? We did. Okay? Therefore, they are under us. They are underneath us. That includes governments. Okay? That's supported by the Declaration of Independence, which says that governments are created by the consent of the people who are governed. It's just that simple, right? So if we don't consent, then they have no authority to govern. Okay, so you have to realize that all of our founding documents support the fact that we live in original jurisdiction. The problem is through these adhesion contracts, like our driver's license and your voter's registration and your birth certificate and these different pieces of paper that you were told that you had to get or you couldn't operate. You've actually made adhesion contracts with that corporation, that corporation government, which became a corporation again in 1871. Since then, we've not ever had a government. There is no government in America. There hasn't been one since 1871. A government is of the people. I mean, how many times have we said it? A government of the people, by the people, for the people. Okay, so if a government is of the people, and a government has to be of the people, then we don't have a government, because that government's not of the people. It's a corporate charter, chartered in 1871 by the Organic Act of Washington, D.C. Okay, a lot of us have awakened to that. So what do? We step into original jurisdiction. We notice all the authorities, and we tell them, who we are. Hey, guess what? I'm a flesh and blood man. I do not consent, and I've broken all my contracts. I'm no longer registered to vote. I'm no longer, got a license to drive. I've rebutted all those things and got rid of them. Okay, why? Because I want to be a free man. That's why. I'm tired of living in these contracts. So what I did is I started writing letters of notice and declaration to my superintendent. My superintendent didn't understand the first one, so he sent home an application to register with the state of South Dakota for a exemption to public school education, because I got 2 of mine staying home this year. Again, I have 6, so there's 4 going to their building, and there are 2 of them staying home because I can't, by myself in this particular condition, not really making any money at this time. I can't handle more than 2 right now, because I'm still trying to find ways of paying the bills. So with these 2 staying home, he tries to hand me an application, and so I take the application and I write in big red letters, "Do not consent," to this statutory law, which doesn't apply to me, because statutory laws apply to employees of the government and those who are tied in by adhesion contracts. That's lowercase c citizens, which I am none of those things. I'm officially a foreign diplomat, I suppose. I'm an American national because I was born here on the soil, so I have natural rights. But, defending this is difficult because these people are uneducated to the truth. So I sent him a letter instructing him that that these statutory laws don't apply to me. I'm not going to sign this thing. It's no good to me. And I offered him a different document. I said, here, you can file this with the state. That just simply says I'm the living beneficiary and a freeholder, and these kids are staying home. These kids are going to school, and that's it. It's called the Declaration. Go back to the Declaration of Independence. What did it say? It said that all men are created equal, right? It put a presumption in law right from the very beginning, the founding law of this country, that said that all of us are kings. Well, if I'm a king of my own house, then shouldn't I be able to declare, to a corporation that is underneath me, hey, guess what? I'm, the Eugene Richard of the House of Hidalgo. That's what my name is, and this is what I want. I want 2 of my kids home. I want 4 of them at your building, and we'll go from there. I don't want them taking standardized tests, because I think that's bogus, all that kind of stuff. So we went round and round, and today he sent me an email. He said he had a chat with the Secretary of State, who, by the way, I've also noticed. Secretary of State advised him to get a lawyer. Okay, which I think is kind of funny, because the Secretary of State didn't want to answer that question because he knows who I am. I've noticed him. Okay, so what does the Secretary of State do? He defers it. He says, "Oh, get a lawyer." So the principal, or the superintendent of the school is now getting a lawyer, and he wrote me a very nice letter today. He did. It was very nice. The nice letter actually said that he doesn't want to do this, but he's got his hands tied because he does have to he's subjected to statutory law. I'm not, but he is. So what is he going to do? He's going to talk to this lawyer, and he's hoping that this lawyer will see things the way that I do, which I can tell you he won't, because he's a bar attorney, British accredited registry, and he works for that other side. So he's not going to let go of that one. He's going to see this as a gold mine. Of course, he doesn't know what he's getting into either, unless he reads my documents. But I'm going to tell you. So what I told him was, sir, with all due respect, I'll sign your documents, to give you a way out here, as long as you allow me to sign on the beside each signature under duress. Because any contract that you're being forced into signing is not a contract. It's void on its face. Why? Because a real contract has to have consideration on all sides. And I've considered it and declined it. So I'm not going to sign a stupid contract for a statutory bogus law. It doesn't apply to me. Unless I'm allowed to put under duress beside a signature. Now, when he gets back to me, I'll update you guys and let you know how that goes. But this is the answer, folks. These last three and a half minutes, this is the answer. The answer is communicate. Tell them who you are, and tell them who they are, and teach them. Because that's what I did. I wrote a letter telling him exactly who he is. And you know what? He's acting totally properly. He is. Because he's under statutory law. He is. He's an employee of the government. He's an officer. He holds an office. He's a superintendent of schools. So, you know what? That's fine. I don't have a problem with him doing what he's doing. He's doing the right thing for him. But I do appreciate that he came to me honestly and told me that he wishes the best, and he doesn't want this thing to go into litigation. So that's kind of where it's at, and I'm telling you, the answer is communicate. Tell your superintendent that you do not consent to the Common Core standard. Tell your superintendent and your principals, your teachers, and make them very aware so they can work with you, okay? Because otherwise they're going to think that you are just another sucker. Just like that dumbing down clip that I played, they're going to see you as they're not going to see you as a parent professional. They're going to consider themselves the professionals because they've had educational training. So let's get on the ball here. Let's start communicating with the fiduciaries. And what I mean by fiduciary is that person who's been appointed to look over that particular situation. Okay, let's remember who you are. You are above them because you are one of the people. You are a living beneficiary. You're not a trustee. You're a living beneficiary. They're the trustee. Their job is to take care of you. That's what they're supposed to do. And I'm looking forward to September the 1st when their liability goes out the window. Due to that papal decree that happened back on June the 11th or June the 17th. July the 11th. Their immunity goes bye-bye September the 1st. And when that immunity goes bye-bye, we the people can hold them guilty of war crimes. Now, I'm not telling you to rush out and do that, but guess what? I am telling you to walk in peace. Operate in peace. Go up to these guys and tell them who they are and who you are. So, God bless you guys. Thanks for coming on the show. It's been great. Stay safe.